So you've started your journey of awakening, you're looking around now and you realize, wow, I got some toxic people in my life. What do? Stay tuned because we're going to jump right into this in today's episode. This is your invitation to become the alchemist of your life. You decode your heaven on earth and go through the alchemical process. The alchemist is a master of himself so that he can master life. People thought alchemists were turning lead into gold, but they're really crystallizing their soul into form. Alchemize your golden potential. Welcome to the Golden Life. Welcome to the Golden Life. My name's David Gilbert. I'm here to help you become the alchemist of your life so you could powerfully transform yourself, therefore your life, and create as much gold along the way. Now, today we're going to talk about a really powerful topic, and that is relationships, especially as you grow, as you start to really master yourself, as you really start to awaken to the bigger game of life and go on your inward journey, your alchemical journey, or other people like to say your healing journey. Well, you're going to come to a point where what was you in the first phase of alchemy, the black phase, you start to get to know the unconscious patterns of yourself. Therefore, you start to see them in other people. And then you go, oh no, these people are doing me wrong. And how do you navigate this? I want to start and acknowledge that there's absolutely times to cut people out. And if you're on this topic, you've probably heard some other video, and I just want to acknowledge what a lot of people, especially in the influencer realm, just say is just cut out all the negativity. Just cut it out. And today I want to explore the vision beyond that vision. And I'm going to start off with a story about my wife. This is something I'm so proud and like amazed of how she's shown up through her own awakening journey. Because we both had two very different households. I grew up with a household full of farmers, and my parents separated, and it was just my mom, and she grew up on a farm, and her mom left her. Hope she's okay with me sharing this. Sorry, Mom. To just say, like, it was a very stoic family. Like, we didn't express big emotions all the time. Whereas my wife grew up in a very opposite household, where they love to express their emotions. It was a household full of females, plus her stepdad, and they were just known to fully express themselves freely and fully. So we go about life in a way where we don't know what we don't know, right? You're just raised in this environment, and that's normal to you. And then you go through life, maybe like me, you get a partner, you move in together, and after you get through that honeymoon phase, well, what happens? You start butting heads. You start seeing each other's unconscious patterns. You start being like, why do you do this? Like, that hurts me. Like, I never had this in my whole life. I was not raised that way. This is not how you do things. And the other person's like, well, this is how we did things. And this is not how you do things. And then you're just fighting, right? Because you're getting to know yourselves through relationship with others. And that is how we get to know ourselves. So to acknowledge, first of all, we grow up in an environment where we don't know any better. We don't know what we don't know. Now you started your process of awakening. If you're here, you're starting to awaken to your own potential, your true source of who you are, to how you want to show up in life, to really stepping into your potential as the alchemist of your life and mastering yourself. And you're going through the alchemical journey, right? Awakening to all parts of yourself. So know, as you go through this process, and I touched on this in the previous episode, there is gravity when it comes to your environment, especially relationships, right? You live a certain way your whole life. You realize, no, I'm committed to expanding my potential. I'm committed to seeing what vision, my golden vision, I can create for myself and alchemizing that into reality. So you start evolving. You start changing. Now, the environment you've been in, aka as people say, the closest 5 people in your life are like, what's going on? I have this perspective of who you are, and you're trying to change this and evolve, but I don't want you to evolve because I like my comfort zone, because I want to stay how things are and just keep it because I can have control of what I think life is going to be like. And if you change, that's going to change up my viewpoint of life, and that's going to really affect my ego. So what do? They unconsciously find ways like gravity to pull you back to who you were. Now, this isn't a bad thing. This is a process. This is one of the sacrifices of transformation. Now, this is where you're going to find a lot of videos online and podcasts where people say, just cut them out. Just cut the cord. You don't need that toxicness in your life. And I'm going to say sometimes, or maybe. And what if, not saying this is absolute truth, but what if the real work was you going through the whole alchemical journey to become such a powerful being that you can come back and be that light amongst others and call them up into their potential and be so crystallized in who you are, the gravity of their behaviors and attitudes no longer pull you down. So what do I mean by this? Coming back to my wife and why I'm so proud of her. Because as she started to really go through her awakening process and realize, oh wow, what I thought was just normal, yeah, there was a lot of, quote unquote trauma, just experiences she didn't know how to integrate and were really rough and were really crazy. And as she learned that and got to know the ways and see, not from a kid's perspective, from an adult's and now a parent's perspective of how her parents showed up, it could be easy, as well as other family members, it could be easy to say, and I'm just creating space. But what I could really acknowledge, what was so beautiful about my wife, and still is today, what I just look into her like, wow, this is the way that she was willing and courageous enough to confront it head on with her family members. Because I will say it is a very easy trap to fall into. And I might even say it's been part of my journey too, where it is part of the process of you do need a little bit of space to clarify who you are and who you're becoming and the vision that you're creating to be able to stay in that energy as you start to get outside where you once were, right? You're entering a new way of being and the environment can suck you back in. And I'm also talking about with relationships, those close ones, family members, close friends. So that is part of the process of having that space, healthy boundaries, right? Creating healthy boundaries. Now, the beautiful thing about my wife, it can be so easy to get into just bypassing your relationships altogether. Why? Because you're this new woke person now and you are spiritual or whatever the thing is. I'm making fun of myself. Whatever the thing is for you that you have evolved into, this new being, and you can see all things. And I just don't need that toxicity in my life because it's only about joy and love. And that's the only thing in life. Well, okay, you do you. And if you want to show up as a powerful being, well, then you would find a way to get uncomfortable in relationship to your loved ones, right? Not run away from it. That's just another avoidance technique, but to actually run into it. And my wife was somebody who always came back and gracefully, sometimes not gracefully, this is part of the process, sometimes very directly, would give feedback or share what was going on in her reality with her family members. And guess what would happen? Sometimes this would blow up. Sometimes it will cause a tear in the relationship because you're saying, I'm no longer this person and I want this healthy boundary and this is how you've been showing up in my life and I no longer tolerate that because I love myself on a new level. And the person is like, I don't show up like that, and they have their own reaction. Here's the thing I really want you to learn. How do you grow and expand a container of trust, love, and a relationship? No matter who it is, whether it's a committed partner or a family member. Well, the way to expand is to break it. And then from that, if you're literally going to expand a bubble, you got to break the bubble to make a bigger bubble, right? So it comes back to how can you become a being that has the tools to be able to come back to your relationships as you go through your own alchemical journey, and then being so confident and grounded in yourself and full of love and compassion for all other beings that you can speak the truth of your heart. This is what my experience has been like. This is how it's affected me. I want to make this verbal request from you, which is taking things instead of an expectation, which we have almost boundless expectations with our loved ones and family members, right? Oh, your parents should have shown up this way or that way. versus verbalizing an agreement or commitment moving forward, a direct request, and verbalizing it, not living in the land of expectation, because then you're just living in fantasy because nobody else knows these expectations. You just made them up in their head, even though to you, they're beliefs and you think this is how life really is. So I know that's a lot to just settle in, but to acknowledge you become a person who through the heart can share how it's impacted you and your request of that family member or relationship or partner moving forward. And then through curiosity, ask, what do you think about that? How does that affect you? How do you see us moving forward in this? Now, this is probably new information and it seems pretty simple, and it is. That doesn't mean it's easy, right? Because what's going to happen? We're going to have to come to terms that our reality bubble isn't perfect, that we also have blind spots, that what we think expectations of how somebody should show up or how we were showing up isn't always grounded in truth. So this is where you come back to compassion. And the more compassion you can have for yourself, for how you're showing up, as well as how you're just human and you have your flaws. And if you can really accept that, like fully accept that, it becomes playful. Like, oh man, I did it again. I know I'm working on this. I'm sorry. I'm committed to doing better. And if I fall off track, hey, give me feedback so I can get back on track. First, what do we typically do? Our egos want to fight to be right, so we're going to fight the feedback. So this is where, when you go through all the alchemical journey, you can be grounded enough in of yourself because you've faced your deepest fears. Stay tuned. That's going to be episode after this. You've faced your deepest fears. You've gone into your own shadows. You can have grace for all the ways you do silly things because you are human, right? You can ground into your humanity. And when you can do that, you can hold the space for others. So this is where I'm going to say again, this is the great work. The great work is to go through the alchemical journey so that you can hold space for others, for them to have the invitation to transform. Because what happens too is sometimes they're like, you need this growth, you need that. And people are like, whoa, I'm not ready for that. What are you doing? But the more that you can come from having a deep conversation from your heart and from a place of inviting curiosity of how you can grow alongside each other. And it's probably going to involve forgiveness. Because once again, if you're having this hard conversation, you might shatter each other's reality bubbles, and that's going to take repairing. But the greatest relationships are built on trust. So come back to love. Come back to asking for forgiveness in the ways that you showed up, right? Repent on how you know you've shown up. And the more that you can make the conversation purely about yourself, the more the other person is going to receive it. If you can get to a place where you could say, hey, I've gone through this journey and I've started to awaken to ways that I've shown up and these patterns that I didn't realize I was doing to you, babe. I'm so sorry. I'm promising to do better. And this was just purely how I realized this. Do you forgive me? Yes. Okay. I'm curious, how can we create this result, this vision that I have for us moving forward? And then you can get some more feedback. And this is the effective way to navigate relationships. So think about that person in your life right now. What is that hard conversation you just have not been wanting to have? And I do want to really illustrate how profound this is. Because guess what? I can make almost an assertion that I'm sure there's someone in your family that had a conversation they wanted to have with a loved one that they never had, and they took it to the grave. And think about how that one conversation could have transformed the trajectory of not only their own life, but that relationship with a loved one. And if you are here, if you are becoming the alchemist of your life, if you're transmuting your traumas into gold, you're being a generational chain breaker, right? You're clearing out generational trauma within yourself to create a new humanity based on freedom, love, and abundance. So how do we do this? By having the difficult conversations. By doing that, sometimes you're going to get it right. Sometimes you're going to get it wrong. But the more you can humbly ground yourself in compassion, and ask for forgiveness and own it when you do get it wrong, the more the other person's going to be able to trust you, and the more they are going to want to open up and join you on this journey. And this, my friend, is how we shift the collective of humanity, right? One powerful conversation at a time through complete love, which will invite them to join us in embodying our own love so that we can hold more. So I know it's a lot to digest in this video, and I will say again, yes, sometimes there are people that are absolutely taking way more than they are giving in relationship. So yes, loving yourself can mean creating a much larger boundary. This is not to say every relationship you need to go back if they're really narcissistic or if they're really whatever label you're putting on them. Not everyone is meant to stay around, but as you go through the alchemical journey, as you really start to embody more and more love for yourself, you'll know if a relationship is energizing and empowering or draining and disempowering. And that's kind of like a very general principle I like to live by. If I hang out with this person, are they energizing me or are they draining me? Do they make me feel empowered or full of love or feel better as I walk away from them? Or do they make me feel worse? Okay, if they make me feel worse and drained, well, time to create a little bit more space. But if it's a key member of your family or friend group or partner, well, I'm going to be here to say, through love and compassion, go into the hard conversation, because that's how you get the gold on the other side. And I know you have other people in your circle or in your own family who did not do that. So this is how you get to be the leader and create massive transformation in yourself and your descendants and your legacy by being the one courageous enough to have the hard conversation. Through love, ask for forgiveness, and explore how you guys can move forward and grow together. And the invitation for today is, if you have an ally on the journey of transformation, if you have somebody else who's committed to becoming the alchemist of their own lives, I invite you to take a very bold step, to not let this just be an episode where you're taking in information, but you take bold action. So my invitation, if you're willing to play and be bold, is to invite that ally. It could be a friend, it could be an accountability partner, whoever it is in their life that also committed to their own transformation, personal and professional development, to invite them to watch this episode with you. Rewatch it, take notes, and make a game plan on one person you're going to reach out to and have a powerful conversation. Because this is where real transformation and gold lies. Now, if you're really nervous, if there's somebody in your life, you know that if you just had that conversation, it could shift almost everything in your life. Well, this is the beauty of having your ally, your journey buddy, right? You can practice with them. You can pause the episode, practice back and forth, take notes, be prepared, and then become the alchemist. Go create the gold where you see lead in your life, and do it with friends, because why? It's way more fun that way, and we're built to do this together, not by ourselves. Take my advice from my own journey. Life gets way better when you do this work with friends. Thank you for watching today's episode. I love to hear when you go take bold action, not just absorb this information, but put it in place and learn by doing it and create that gold. Please share with me what you learn, what results you create. And I'm looking forward to the powerful being you will become, with the powerful relationships you are going to live into, and have all the gold reaping coming your way from doing that. So thank you, and stay golden.